You ever noticed how fast you reach for your phone when things get quiet? Not when something important happens, not when you actually need to answer some kind of message you got, just when there's a small empty space. You sit down for a second and there is no sound, no task, and nothing to ask you from you, and you instantly move your hand to your pocket and you check your phone. You open some kind of app, you put on some music, you look at some videos that popped up, and you refresh an app you already checked 3 minutes ago. And the strange part is this: it does not even feel like a decision anymore. It feels so automatic, like your mind has learned that silence is something to escape from before you even know what is inside of it. And that is the part worth looking at. Because maybe you are not just relaxing, maybe you are not just taking a break, maybe you are running from the moment where you would actually have to meet yourself. And I know that sounds dramatic at first, but stay with me for a second because you know that feeling, right? You know what it is like when the days slow down and something in you starts to get uncomfortable. Maybe nothing is even wrong on the outside, but inside there is this tension, this heaviness, this strange pressure you cannot really name. And before you even give it a chance to speak, you cover it with something: a screen, a sound, a conversation, a snack, maybe even, or another task, a tiny hit of stimulation, not because you planned it, but because being with yourself without interruption has started to feel unfamiliar. There is a difference between rest and escape, and you can feel a difference if you're honest to yourself. Real rest gives you something back. It makes you feel cleaner, calmer, more connected, even if you're very tired before. But escapes give you relief maybe for a moment, but when it is over, you feel slightly more scattered than you were before. You watched something, but you did not really enjoy it. You scrolled, but you did not feel better after the 30 minutes or even an hour. You filled the silence, but the thing underneath the silence is still there waiting for you, waiting for your attention. And that is why this pattern is so easy to miss. It does not look dangerous. It looks so freaking normal. It looks harmless even. It looks like you are just unwinding. But if every quiet moment needs to be filled, then at some point you're not choosing rest anymore. You're avoiding contact with your own inner life. Think about the first moment of your morning. Before you have even had one clean thought of your own mind, your attention can already belong to something else. For example, you wake up and before you have checked in with yourself, you check into a whole world that is louder than yourself. You check your phone. You check your phone and someone else's voices, someone else's lives or opinions or urgencies get access to your mind before you do. And then later in the day you wonder why your thoughts feel messy, why your mood feels shaped by things you did not even consciously choose, right? But if the first door you open every morning is not the door into yourself, but the door into noise, then of course your inner world starts to feel less stable. Your attention is not a small thing. It is not just something floating around. It is the steering wheel of your life. And when you give it away immediately, you start the day already pulled away from yourself. And the uncomfortable truth is that you may have trained yourself to leave the room every time you appear in it. Not physically. Don't get me wrong on this. You're not leaving physically, but you leave internally. The second a real feeling walks in, you distract yourself. You know, that the second boredom shows up, you escape. The second uncertainty becomes noticeable, you search for something easier to feel. And over the time, that creates a strange relationship with yourself. You are with yourself all day, but you are rarely actually present with yourself. You carry your thoughts, your fears, your desires, your questions, your sadness, your hunger for more, but you keep them on a layer of noise. So of course you feel disconnected. Of course you sometimes feel like you do not know what you really want. And of course, clarity feels distant. You cannot hear yourself clearly when you never let the room get quiet. And the difficult part of this whole thing is this: silence can be so freaking uncomfortable because silence does not entertain you. It does not flatter you. It does not instantly make you feel better. Silence removes the cover. It lets you notice what has been sitting there underneath the activities. Maybe you realize you're tired in a deeper way than you admit. Maybe you notice that something in your life has not felt aligned for you in a while. Maybe you feel the weight of a decision you keep postponing. Maybe you feel lonely, not because nobody is around, but because you have not been truly present with yourself. Maybe you feel that quiet dissatisfaction that comes when you know you are capable of more, but you keep choosing smaller, easier versions of today. And the moment that truth starts rising, the reflex appears. Do something, open something, turn something on, make it go away, right? But it does not go away. That is the trap. What you keep avoiding does not disappear just because you distract yourself, you numb yourself with addictions. It stays active in the background. The conversation you keep delaying still drains you. The work you keep postponing still follows you. The emotions you refuse to feel still shape your reactions. The decision you avoid still takes up space in your mind. And the strange thing is, this can make you feel exhausted even when you have not done anything that looks exhausting. You can spend the whole day busy, stimulated, and occupied and still feel heavy at the end of it. Not because the day was too much, but because underneath all of that movement, nothing real was faced. You escaped the discomfort, but you also escaped the release that would have come from dealing with it, right? This is the part where you have to be very, very honest with yourself. When you grab your phone, what are you actually reaching for? Are you reaching for something useful or are you reaching away from something uncomfortable? When you put on noise, are you choosing beauty or are you avoiding silence? When you keep switching from one thing to the next, are you actually interesting or are you just refusing to stay with the moment you are right now? This is not about judging every little break you take. Don't get me wrong on this. That would just become another form of pressure. The point is not to turn your life into some cold, extreme project where joy is forbidden. The point is to stop lying to yourself about what is really happening. Because sometimes the same action can come from two completely different places. One video can be intentional, another video can be escape. One walk with music can feel alive, another one can be a way of not hearing your own thoughts. The action alone does not tell the truth, the intention does. And you know the difference. Deep down you usually know. You know when you're resting and you know when you are hiding. You know when something gives you energy and when it leaves you dull. You know when you are enjoying something and when you are just numbing yourself with it. So the problem is not that you have no awareness. The problem is that awareness is often arriving right before the uncomfortable choice. You notice the pattern for a half second and then you still choose to escape because it feels easier, and it is really easier. You tell yourself it is not that serious. You tell yourself you will deal with it later, right? Or you tell yourself you just need a little break. And sometimes that is true. Breaks are very important for your mental health. But sometimes I need a break is just the softest sentence for I do not want to face this yet. And this matters because the thing you practice becomes easier. If you practice leaving yourself every time discomfort appears, leaving becomes a default. If you practice reaching for stimulation every time the moment becomes quiet, quiet starts feeling threatening. Quietness, you know? And if you practice avoiding one task, the second resistance appears, resistance starts controlling your day. You might say you want focus, but your actions keep draining distraction. You might say you want peace, but your habits keep feeding inner noise. And you might say you want to have discipline, but you rehearse avoidance in small ways every single day. And this is not meant to shame you. I'm not here to put out all the negative things you do in work. It is meant to wake you up because your life is not shaped only by the big decisions you make once in a while. It is shaped by the tiny repetition you barely notice. Those repetitions teach your nervous system what is normal. This is why a normal life can start feeling dull when you overstimulate yourself constantly. Your brain gets used to fast changes, quick rewards, new inputs, new voices, new images, new little hits. Then you sit down to do one meaningful thing and suddenly it feels unbearable slow. Reading feels slow. Training feels slow. Working on a long-term project feels freaking slow. Sitting with one thought even feels slow. Even having a quiet meal can feel weird because it is extra layer on top of it, you know? And then you start thinking the problem is the task or the day or your motivation. But maybe your baseline has been trained away from that. Maybe the issue is not that your life is empty. Maybe your mind has become so used to intensity that ordinary reality no longer feels like it is enough. And that is a pretty dangerous place to live from. Because the best parts of life are not always loud. A real conversation is not always loud, or a meaningful project you start is not always exciting. Healing yourself is not always beautiful. Discipline does not always feel inspiring to you. Building something that matters in this life, in this world, probably not always looks that repetitive from the outside. You return to the same work again and again. You sit with the same uncertainty. You make slow progress. You stay with something past the first wave of motivation. But if you have trained yourself to only follow what feels instantly rewarding, that depth starts to feel wrong, even though that is exactly what you are missing. You want a life that feels meaningful, right? But meaning usually asks you to stay longer than your impulses want you to stay. It asks you to remain present after the first discomfort appears. And that is the real confrontation here. You are not only escaping boredom, you are escaping the place where your life could actually change. Because change does not usually begin when everything feels exciting. It begins when you finally stop running long enough to tell the truth. You sit there and admit that something is not working. You admit that you keep breaking promises to yourself. You admit that you are tired of pretending that small distractions are harmless when they are quietly stealing your focus. And you also admit that you want more from yourself, but you also see that how often you avoid the exact discomfort that would build you. That moment is not pretty when you see all those things. It does not feel like a motivational montage. It feels honest. It feels a little uncomfortable, yes, but it is so powerful because for once you are not escaping the truth. You are staying long enough to see it. And once you see it, you do not need to fix your whole life overnight. This is another escape by the way, you know, turning awareness into some dramatic plan so you can feel in control for a whole day or you can control your whole life. You do not need to delete everything, disappear from the world right now, or become completely a different person by Monday. That intensity usually collapses because it is built from pressure, not from presence. Start smaller than your ego wants. Create one clean pocket in your day where you are not allowed to escape. 10 minutes in the morning before your phone. One walk without music or one focused work block where you do not switch tabs the moment it gets hard. One simple meal where you just eat and let your mind settle, not watching Instagram or watching TV. One simple moment where the urge appears and you do not immediately obey it. It sounds almost too simple, I know. But simple is exactly what works when your system has become too loud. The real action is not becoming perfectly disciplined. The real action is pause before escape. That is the whole doorway. When you feel the urge to grab your phone, pause for a few seconds and ask, what am I trying now? Not to feel right now in this moment. You do not need to journal for an hour and take a cold plunge and meditate. I don't know. Just ask yourself honestly. Maybe the answer is boredom. Maybe it is stress. Maybe it is resistance. Maybe it is loneliness you feel in that moment or the discomfort of starting something, whatever it is, just name it. Because the moment you name it, you are no longer completely controlled by it. You have created a little bit of space between the impulse and the action. And inside that space, self mastery starts to become real. That tiny pause might feel weak at first. You might sit there and feel restless. You might feel ridiculous because nothing is technically happening, but your whole body wants to escape. And as bad as it sounds, this is good because that is the training. You are learning that discomfort is not an emergency. You are teaching yourself that boredom will not destroy you. You are proving that you can be with yourself without needing to cover the moment instantly. And every time you do that, even for a minute, you rebuild trust with yourself. You show yourself, I do not have to run because something feels uncomfortable. This is not a loud kind of strength that looks impressive from the outside. This is the quiet strength, the kind that changes how you move through your life, the kind that makes you feel like you are no longer being dragged around by every urge that appears. And when that strength grows, hope I named this word right, strength, I hope you know what I mean. Your relationship with your own life starts to change. You stop needing every moment to entertain you. You stop confusing silence with emptiness, and you stop believing that discomfort always means something is wrong. Sometimes discomfort means something real is finally becoming visible. Sometimes the heaviness you feel is not a sign that you need another distraction. It could be a sign that something inside you is asking for your attention. And when you stop running from that, you begin to hear yourself again, not in some mystical, complicated way, in a very practical way. You know what needs to be done. You know what needs to change. You know what you have been avoiding, and you know where your energy is leaking. You know which promises to yourself matters next. And that is the whole realization I want you to get in this video. You are not lost as you think. You may just be too distracted to hear the part of you that still knows. There is a version of you underneath the noise that is much clearer than your daily habits make you feel. But you will not reach that version through more stimulation. You reach it by removing enough noise that your own signals become audible again. And this is why one quiet morning can be more powerful than another massive productivity plan. This is why 10 honest minutes can reveal more than 2 hours of random consumption. And this is why staying with one uncomfortable feeling can free more energy than pretending you are fine for another week. The doorway back to yourself is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is simply the moment where you stop interrupting your own life. So today I want you to do one thing differently. Not tomorrow, not when the perfect reset begins, not when you feel motivated enough. Today, choose one moment where you would normally escape and stay there a little longer. When you wake up, do not give your attention away immediately. Sit on the edge of the bed, breathe, and let yourself arrive before the world enters. Or when you feel the urge to distract yourself during a difficult task, keep the tab closed and work for 5 more minutes. When the evening gets quiet and you want to drown it instantly, let the silence exist for a while and ask yourself what you have been avoiding. That is the shift. You're not trying to become someone else in one day. You are teaching yourself to stop abandoning yourself in small moments. And do not use this to beat yourself up. That would miss the whole point of this. You are not weak because you learned to escape. You probably learned it because it worked for a while. It gave you relief or it made heavy moments feel lighter. This is self-management too. Don't get me wrong on this. It helped you avoid feelings you did not longer know how to process it. But what helped you cope for a season can also limit you if you never outgrow it. At some point, the same escape that once protected you starts keeping you away from your own power. And when you notice that, you do not need shame, you need honesty. You need patience with yourself. You need to come back to yourself one small decision at a time. Because the life you want is probably not hidden somewhere far away. It might be sitting behind the discomfort you keep avoiding. The clarity you want may be inside the silence you keep interrupting. The discipline you want may begin in the moment where you feel resistance and stay anyway. The peace you want may not come from adding more noise, but from finally removing enough of it to hear what is true. And that is not easy, but it is simple. Stop escaping every quiet moment. Stop treating every uncomfortable feeling like something that needs to be deleted. Stop handing your attention away before you have even checked in with yourself. Start listening and start building the kind of presence that makes your life feel like something you are actually inside of. So when the urge comes today, notice it. That is your practice. When your mind wants to run, hey, when silence feels awkward, let it be awkward for a moment. You do not need to win the whole day. Just win the small spaces before the escape. That small space is where your freedom begins to return. And if this hits something real in you, do not leave it as a nice thought. Open the next video in the self-mastery playlist you see up here, down here, anywhere, and stay in the process. Because one message can wake you up, but repetition is what changes how you live.